Okay, so we've got our dog file here, the dog project. We click on it, we get this little jump back and forth. We're just adding an instance and removing an instance here, and we've got our feedback showing up down here in the output panel. Now we're going to go ahead and add some sound into the project. Just before we go on, I turned off, under Flash Preferences, I turned off the action script code hints because that was starting to drive me crazy. And hopefully that'll take off some of that auto-correcting that it was doing. That wasn't being very helpful. And I think that those code hints are fairly useless unless you kind of know what you're doing, ironically. So anyhow, that might be something you want to do. Now let's go ahead and bring sound in. In order to bring in sound, we have to import two more classes. The first one is fairly straightforward. Import flash.media.capital semicolon. What that does is it allows us to bring in sound files, sound that are in our library. So that's pretty straightforward. We'll import a sound file to our library, and then we can bring it over using the sound class. What's less obvious is what's called the sound channel. And we bring that in, import flash.media.sound channel, upper camel case, semicolon. The way to think about these two things is that the sound is like your CD, so each sound is a different CD, and a sound channel is like a CD player. So technically, when you play one of your CDs, you're really pushing play on the CD player, not on the individual CD. And so that's what we're going to be working with sound and sound channel. And it'll become obvious as we go along. So before we go on, let's go ahead and jump back over to, let's save this, and jump back over to our Flash file, which again is a blank stage and nothing on the timeline here. But in our library, we have our symbols that we've been using, the cat symbol, which is linked, and the dog symbol, which is linked, and the red button, which we used in both, which is not linked because we're referring to that via the instance name that we did in the properties of each symbol. So now it's time to bring in our sounds. File, import to library. And I really recommend keeping all of your sound files in this that you're using in your project in the same place as your Flash files, so you can refer back to them if anything goes wrong. But once you bring the sound file in, it should be permanently a part of Flash. So I made a couple of sound effects here. I made a cat sound, and I'll go ahead and bring that in. It shows up over here, soundmilescat.aif. You might be working with a WAV file or an MP3, that's fine. File, import to library, woof, SoundMiles woof, okay. And also I've brought in, or I will bring in, import to library, a little loop that I made of some music, okay. So I've got these three sound files here. Now they all have the .aif extension, and I'm going to go ahead and change that. Because again, these are the names we're going to be using to refer, we're going to refer to these names in our action script, so you don't want to have any of these .aifs on here. So I go here, select it, go to the properties here, and we'll go ahead and rename this. Just Kings Road, let's call it that, that's fine. Kings Road loop in this case. And go ahead and export it for ActionScript and make sure that this class name is the same, which right now it's not because it has the old name on here. So we need to go ahead and change that manually, get rid of the .aif and all that. So these names need to be exactly the same. And you can see here that they're using flash.media.sound, which was the import that we used in our ActionScript, and say OK. And OK. And it'll show up over here as being linked. So that means we can refer to these names now in our ActionScript file. Same things with these other two. Go down here, Fix these up. Sound miles cat, get rid of the .aif. Export for action script, get rid of the .aif. And OK. And same thing down here. Sound miles woof. Change the names, export, change the name. And OK. Now, if we save that, go back to our ActionScript file, and we're going to do this exact same thing that we did up here. And so what we did with our declaring our variables was that we created empty variables that were going to hold instances of symbols from the library. Well, these are symbols in the library. Even though they're sound files, they're still considered symbols in the library. So we'll just do the exact same thing. Variable, space, lowercase for the variable name, Kings Road Loop, colon, uppercase, Kings Road Loop, semicolon, variable, sound miles cat, colon, sound miles cat, uppercase, semicolon, variable, sound miles woof, colon, sound miles woof. Okay, so we just created 3 new variables and declared them, and they're going to hold instances of these library symbols that are sounds. That's very straightforward. And, you know, it's not a bad idea to get in the habit of commenting these sound lines, just because the sound code can end up taking a lot of room, and it's not a bad idea to do your sound work at the very end. And I would probably go back and do some more organization if I were really going to do this as a full-on file, but I'm just going to go ahead with it right now. Anyway, just grouping that sound code together is not a bad idea. So now we need to go ahead and do the same thing that we did down here. We need to fill those variables with a value. So we just go down here, Kings Road Loop equals new Kings Road Loop, semicolon. And we can get into copy and paste here if we want. I'll just copy that whole chunk there, paste it down here, equals new, and copy and paste this. This is where we start getting into typographical errors when we test our movies. But again, like I said, just expect that. Don't expect it to work the first time. So we've just done the exact same thing we did with our movie clips, and we'll just do our sound comment here. Or you could do it here, you know, however you want to do it. So now we've got our sound variables, and we've filled the sound variables. What we have to do now is bring in a sound channel and then dump our sound instances into those that sound channel, and we'll do that in the next video.